It's hard to hear the truth with so many people talking. Join your host as he engages in unfettered conversations with folks from around the world, sharing their perspective on how business, technology, political policies, and world events affect our spiritual, mental, and physical well being. If you want to turn your thoughts into actions, then listen to the Brother of Light, dropping wisdom in your left ear and knowledge in your right.
Well, hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of Folks Unfettered. I am your host, Gene Folks. And like she said, I'm that brother of light. So today is November 9th, 2022. And for most Americans, it is or has been Election Day. And for this episode of Wisdom Wednesday, I wanted to discuss a little bit about our electoral process, our midterm elections, and just my thoughts on the process overall as I've participated in it since I was eligible to vote at about the age of 18 or so. You know, we're gonna change this background just a little bit because it's interesting, right? So thank you for joining us. I know that a lot of you have been glued to your television sets as we have come upon this day to where we as Americans participate in a process that has become quite controversial in the last few years. And so we're going to take a break from what we normally do with the channel. Actually, take that back. It's not a break, right? Because one of the things we do talk about are political policies. And we talk about race, technology, and political policies. And, you know, I must say that if you're like me and as you have looked at the close races that we've had throughout the nation in these midterm elections, you know, we have been told, or we were told, as you've been watching the news, that there was going to be this red wave that was going to sweep across the nation, and we were going to bring those Democrats to heel, you know, and that didn't happen. Now, here's the irony in that process: is we have gas prices that are quite high, and I don't know what your political affiliation will be, but high gas prices affect us all. It doesn't matter who's in office. The economy is not doing too tough. Um, Food prices, if you've been like me and gone to the grocery store, have just been ridiculously high. And it seems like your dollar can't stretch as far as it used to. If you're a small business owner like myself, a management consulting firm, it's been really a struggle to stay alive, right? On a daily basis. And it just seems like we're getting less and less. And so, you know, we the people say, you know, we're gonna vote and we're gonna change this. And you know, a confession is I've voted both parties. I voted Republican and Democrat, depending on, you know, sort of what side of the aisle that I'm on. And and I do that because I tend to want to look at the issues at hand as opposed to going down a particular party line. Because, you know, as you see in some key states, I mean, Georgia is still being decided, right? Um, One of the people that I've come to like and admire from what I know of her, Stacey Abrams, she lost her race there in Georgia. New York has its first woman governor, which I think it's God, that kind of stuff is so long overdue, you know. So we'll see how she does. But you know, when we think about voting, and I remember as a kid coming up, you know, how important it was to vote as I started getting close to that age. I look at the generation below us, behind us, and the one behind that, and they're just not interested. They don't believe that anything's going to change. And that's the thing that I wanted to discuss today was this idea of political policies and how the rhetoric that we hear can lead us to a state of disappointment, even to someone like me. And I'm sure you're like me, to where I'm like, what are you people talking about, right? When you sort of have boots on the ground and you look at your leaders and say, listen, we want change. It used to be that you could look across the aisle and handle those fundamental components that make up our society that we could all agree upon, such as safe schools and neighborhoods and affordable food, taking care of the homeless or the unemployed or people that have just sort of hit hard times, encouraging small business owners to participate in the American dream. And we're becoming more and more cynical about this idea that my camp doesn't want to listen to your camp. And so now we are a nation that's politically divided. And as I consider the Republican Party and this red wave that was going to happen, given that the present administration doesn't quite seem to have its legs under it yet, gas prices are still too expensive for my taste. Food prices are going through the roof. The elderly are struggling. Young people are having it difficult. The financial markets are in turmoil. We've had 5 months of just straight loss, although we've had some bounce back here and there. And that's not financial advice. For me, it's just an assessment as a non financial person these days. And the reason why I put that disclaimer in there is I used to be a wealth manager, investment banker at Merrill Lynch, so I'm not handing out financial advice. I'm looking as an everyday American. We're a country that's at war externally, and we're definitely a country that's at war internally. We can't agree on crime, and really, let me rephrase that. We can't agree on crime. We just can't agree on how to handle it. How do we purge out those bad apples so that it's not targeted against one group, a group that looks like me, essentially, right? How can we get more reform to where when someone does commit a crime, how can we rehabilitate them, truly rehabilitate them to be um, productive members of our society? Because one of the uh, modern day forms of slavery is having the term felon slapped on your back, right? And so you're not able to do anything. Rent a house or an apartment you can, but not without a lot of turmoil and trouble. And so our recidivism rates are high, where people tend to return to prison. And then also when we're trying to do criminal justice sentencing, we should maybe look at the total situation and decide, is it worth, depending on the nature of the crime, obviously, is it worth processing those things when the information is unclear? And so there is some details there that we may want to discuss that we seem to just be yelling across the aisles. But from my estimation, what does it say about the Republican Party that, given where we are in our nation, with the affirmation things that I mentioned, aforementioned things actually uh, that I talked about, how they really miscommunicated their message? How even with the difficulties that we're facing as Americans, they're not speaking to us. They're definitely not speaking to me. Um, and I think that's unfortunate, because I find challenges are inherent in both parties. And I find myself, I don't know if you're like me, somewhere in the middle. Um, I think that there are some things that perhaps we can pull back on, even though they may sound good and feel good because of our, because of our attitudes in the 50s and some things that we've done to people. But then, I'm watching the elections and I catch them in states that, maybe I have family members that live there, or um, maybe they're places that I want to do business with, and I find, man, I just find it so um, disheartening that we have all this talk, all this discussion, and yet what I see are still people struggling to pay their rent or to feed their children. I see homeless people on the street, and I see a looming recession is going to be a white collar recession, right? It's going to be so difficult for us to really find a new way of doing business. I see layoffs happening. I think Meta just laid off 1,000 people, I believe, right? And so that puts a strain on our economy. And yet the politicians that are going out and pick a party are jockeying to remain in office and having our taxpayer dollars pay their salaries. And it doesn't, it just seems we're just recycling the same old stuff. And it doesn't matter if they're young bloods or new bloods. So the question is it the people or is the process, right? Is it really the Republicans or the Democrats, or is it the super PACs behind them? Is it this idea of an oligarchy that keeps things the way they are? Are we really solving problems? Because it just seems like we're having the same discussions over and over and over again. And I don't want to sound pessimistic. If you look at the look on my face, these are really questions that I ask myself rhetorically, because we do, if you're like me, we do want to see a better nation, right? We do want people to be able to afford their homes. You kind of, if you're feeding people and you're providing them opportunities to sustain themselves, those that want it, let's just put it that out there. Some people don't want to work. Um, then they don't want crime or don't want to commit crime. A lot of times people that commit crimes, they're really just trying to feed their family. And so, you know, how do we really put political policies in place that address those issues? I'll share you a story that this election means to me, is why this means to me, and why policies and bureaucracies are becoming an issue is, I got out of the United States Air Force in 1991, and I was hurt when I was in service, and I'm service disabled for one particular thing that happened, and yet I'm really battling um, the Veterans Administration to um, handle my disability, increase my disability based on their diagnosis and their records. They have identified this disability that affects my ADLs, which my activity of daily living. Now, this is not a bash on the VA per se, but we kind of do have a saying as veterans when, we avoid, at least I have, I never needed it before. I've been in the private sector for a very long time and had Cadillac insurance. But it's almost this attitude of deny until you die, you know? And I I'm in a place right now to where, and I'll share this with you, I need a hip replacement. I need a hip replacement. I'm stage 4 arthritis, and the mobility in my left hip is gone. It's just, I don't have it. Um, and it's really taken a toll on me. I'm in pain constantly because I was on a training exercise and I really got hurt. And so here we are 2 days outside of Veterans Day, and somebody's going to come up to me and say, thank you for your service. And while I appreciate that, I know they mean no harm, and I'll probably end up doing the same. Kind of really the way that my country can thank me for my service is, take me at my word, right? Um, Veterans are, man, we don't really take advantage of those benefits that we do have because we don't want to take from our brother, right? And our brother's maybe an army guy and a Navy guy, a Coast Guard guy. We don't want to take from those guys. But then you get a point in your life where you've got stage four arthritis in your hip and you've been diagnosed with anxiety, and you have your lower back has arthritis in it as well. Your right hip's not doing so well. Um, you go see your veterans doctor. They send you out to uh, a civilian outfit, and then they come back and they'll say, yeah, well, we see the arthritis there, osteoarthritis, um, and we see the fact that that matches up to your medical records when you were stationed, in theater, but we're going to deny. Meanwhile, I'm in pain, and I count myself grateful because I have a high threshold for pain. If I tell you that my pain level is a 4, you can count it as probably a 9. If you were to see me to try to put my shoes on, um, I'm too young to not be able to bend over and put my shoe on. Um, it just affects my quality of living, my mental state, and I'm stressed. And this is a plea or a slight on the VA. I went to. I think a lot of Americans really don't know. Sort of, they think we just got it made. Like veterans are you guys are taken care of. You get the zero down on the house, and but quite frankly, when it comes to our health care, when it comes to our living situation, when it comes to our mental health, when it comes to those things that we need and we kind of don't want to need them, um, it feels like our country doesn't want to answer the call, or at least the same call that we were so willing to answer. I didn't join the Air Force because I wanted, free healthcare, or um, I wanted to hear people say thank you for your service. It was a calling uh, that I felt deep inside me. As a little Jamaican kid that came to this country, I wanted to do my part. I wanted to participate in the process. And it's it's disappointing when you start to feel like mm, that same intensity doesn't apply. Most people think that, and I'm going to digress here but I'm also going to make the connection to this election time, is that most people think that a lot of veterans, we have PTSD or Agent Orange or anxiety or anger management issues or homeless or uneducated, um, or troubled kids that didn't need to find a way. And I've come to learn, because I've been very fortunate since getting out of the United States Air Force. I got my undergrad at an HBCU. I got a master's degree. I was working on a doctorate. I've owned several companies. I've worked for several high level firms. And yet, and still, I, because of my service, was about 10 years behind in the corporate world. And yet I had a lot more real world experience in leadership and managing large budgets and projects than people 10, 15 years older than me. And so I never really wanted to have anyone give me any preferential treatment. I didn't want to work for the government. I wanted to employ other people because that was my gift and my calling that aligned themselves with my talents. And yet, it seems to be that those things all fall short. And it is true that some veterans are homeless and some of us don't have a master's degree. And some of us have anger management issues and some of us have challenges in trying to re-enter civilian society. But it goes back to our political policies and our elected officials. And these are just one of the issues. And when I look at how I'm voting now, I'm voting for those individuals who have the courage to take on these issues and the very issues that people like me, because I'm not special, right? But people like me gave an oath to protect and defend. And, you know, in my world, it's pretty simple. If you see a homeless person, don't just give them a coat, but if get them the services that they need. And if they don't want it, let that be on them. If you see a dilapidated neighborhood, um, hold a town hall meeting and ask the people, how can we help you? Right? Not just on election day, not just shaking hands and going, hey, guess what? We're going to try this new policy. Right? And we're not going to hit everything on the mark. No politician is going to hit everything on the mark, but it really is just, can we go beyond words and put things into action? We're having the same conversations year after year after year, right? Can you stop killing black people? Can you stop shooting them? Seriously, how hard is that, right? Um, can we stop the pay gap between men and women? Can we stop it, right? Um, can we can we provide and offer opportunities, maybe public private partnerships in neighborhoods, um, where large organizations are sourcing for talent so that those people that live in that neighborhood can make that neighborhood better? Can we do that? This is when I am looking at from sea to shining sea, from shore to shore, how close these races are from county to county. Now, look, Democrats aren't any better, right? To be honest with you, they're just not. You can't just make big government and say we're gonna be big daddy and take care of everything. I don't want that. Um, we can put we can put programs in place that are temporary to help people, you know, get on their feet. And so as we see this toss about and where they're trying to determine if the Republicans are going to turn over to, take over the House. And then, when you get the Democrats in the Senate and a Democratic president, now we're looking and say, whoa, it'll balance the power, which, golly, I hope and wish that it would. But if you guys remember from recent experience, that quite frankly, it ends in gridlock or deadlock, and they're going to shut the government down. Where's that looks like? When you shut the government down, government employees are furloughed, and people that need services, including veterans like myself, will not receive them during that time period. It's very interesting how these people are jockeying for a job and there's no transparency in whether or not they're doing it. And you say, well, you don't understand politics. I actually really kind of do. I've seen it. I was a lobbyist on Capitol Hill for a defense contractor. It doesn't mean I know it all. The game's probably changed since I've done it. But I think that when you're standing in a food line, when you're wondering, can I put $20 of gas in my car today, or do I buy baby formula and diapers? How am I going to pay the electric bill? How is my company going to acquire new clients so I can keep hiring people? Then it becomes a matter of, are we really serious about the things that we're campaigning about? Are we really serious about helping the the weakest of us, or those of us that are go through hard times from time to time, right? Can we really relate? Are we really that patriotic, right? Or are we do we just take and hey, as long as I'm okay, it's good. That's what it seems like. And I don't mean to be cynical and go on this rant about that, but here's where I'm optimistic. I believe that if we get behind candidates, we the people, and we start insisting for a more perfect union, and we start requiring our elected officials to do their job, then we will go beyond words and get things done. And that's going to require us to stop yelling at each other, right? To incorporate some civility so that we can come up with a compromise for the neighborhoods that we live in and the adjacent neighborhoods. And you say, why the adjacent neighborhoods? Because if you take care of, if you are your brother's keeper, he might not want to dip into your backyard and break your window and steal your stuff. Right? It's just truthful. And we used to be that kind of nation, and we used to have those kind of communities. And it seems more and more that we just don't have it. And it's I get mine and you get yours, and money, money, money at the end of the day. And I think that this election is showing that most of us are really just tired of the status quo. That red wave that we were looking at, it didn't happen. And while that sounds good, it's so now we're back to the same old, same old. I'm a big proponent of a third party. I think most of us will fall into a party. Um, I think we have to have enough of us to be in so much pain, like my veteran story I told you about, to where you are motivated to change. And I can tell you that um, my pain gets so intolerable sometimes that, I call the vets 2 or 3 times a day. I'm sending emails. I'm, you know, going to go see my VSO, which is the veteran service officer, trying to move the ball along because I want to get out of pain. And I think that as a nation, have we reached that point yet? Politically, have we reached the point to where we want to get out of this pain of high gas prices, high food prices, lower wages, increased inflation, 401ks and retirement plans being cut by 50% or so? Same conversations about, well, it's the Republicans, well, it's the Democrats. Well, you know what? I'll go ahead and say it. For me, it's both of them. It's both of them. It's both that are impotent. It's both that are not being put in the painful position of losing their position that will inspire them to change and rightfully represent their constituents. It's just what it is, right? So, as we sit back and we sort of wait for it, and I know everyone's preparing for 2024. We're looking at our midterm elections. Everybody's saying, go out and vote, go out and vote, go out and vote, go out and vote, go out and vote. And you should go out and vote, go out and vote, go out and vote, go out and vote. But let's follow up after the vote. Voting is really, quite frankly, not enough. Let's follow up. Let's start taking notes, like we're in school, right? Let's follow up with our elected officials and say, you know what? I voted for you, and what are we doing about X, Y, Z? Right? And I know that's hard when you are working 12, 13, 14 hours a day and you're worried about losing your job, and and you have family pressures, and the kids need diapers, and you get a kid in college and you don't want to rock the boat because you know but if not you, then who? follow up with your elected officials after the fact and go, so I voted for you. Give them time to get themselves settled in a cup of coffee, and then sit down with them and go, okay, so now what are we talking about? What are we doing? Right? Because this is painful. Gas prices went to $5, $6 a gallon in some places, and they dropped down. We're like, "Woo, gas prices coming down," and we're all confident it's going to come down. And you notice how they crept back up, right? We got to a point where about 320, and then they went from 320 to 375, 385, now in some cases 395 on the East Coast. People say, "Well, Gene, you don't understand. Oil prices fluctuate." Oh, Gene understands. I understand the capital markets, but at some point, we the very people that you want to buy your product, the people that you want to, that consumer, right? I wonder if it makes sense to take care of them a little bit, like we took care of you during the Great Recession, when we had to bail out large organizations so that, because you were too big to fail. And that starts with our political leaders and looking at their political policies. And I know there's some of you out there doing that, but not enough of us are out there doing it because we're busy from day to day. But I will tell you that you're swimming against a stream if you don't stop for a moment and figure out which way the water's flowing. And that means having a conversation, a follow-up conversation with your elected official. So here's the deal. I encourage you, those of you that voted, whether you voted Republican or Democrat, give them 30 days and follow up with your congressman. You can do that in your neighborhood. Follow up with your local officials. Work alongside them to try to figure out how you can make your neighborhood better. It's funny because I'm looking at the camera and I'm thinking, "Wow, I really need to shave the piece right there." Pretty funny. But follow up with them. And for those of you people who didn't vote because you don't think it's gonna do any good, I think you're wrong. I think you're very wrong. Um, I think you participate in the process because it's a blessing for us to do that in this country. And then I think you continue your participation in the process by being active and engaged in your local, state, and federal campaigns and hold your elected officials accountable and have conversations with them as a group about those things that matter to you, not storming the Capitol. That dog's not gonna out. But really intellectual conversation, some delegates. And I know we do, right? But I mean, people from the community, non-elected people with non-political aspirations saying, "Hey, listen, I know you guys are writing this bill, but let me tell you, it's going to hurt me and my family. Let me tell you, it's going to hurt my neighborhood, this city of 12,000, right? These opportunity zones. We want to start our own banks. We want to start our own. We need help in our businesses. How can you help us do that outside of election? What do we need to do to make that happen, right? How can we do better for ourselves financially? Can you help us do that? Because that's what we elected you for. Don't tell me about the red tape. Don't tell me about the bureaucracy. How do we fix it? And that's where we start. That's why there's information out there for veterans to receive health care. A lot of us don't know we have it. You have to go and you have to hunt and you have to search for it because our budgets aren't big enough to tell most of us about the benefits that we do have. And so it's kind of use it or lose it. It's the same way in our political um, arenas. We don't know what's available to us. We have to not just sit back and take it. We have to just have one conversation, one engagement, and share the flow of information so that we can all do better for ourselves and our families. So I'm gonna wrap this up. I kind of went on a rant there on this Wisdom Wednesday. I'm glad that we were all able to get out and participate in the process across this nation. Now let's go to work. Now let's step outside of ourselves and really look to take care of each other, hold our political officials accountable, look at those policies and figure out, is this good for us? And see if we can work across the aisle and force them to do the same. You know, when you're hungry, when you're trying to pay your bills and you're struggling to pay rent and your job looks shaky, it kind of really don't care about who is red or blue. Is, are you going to help me feed my family, pay my rent, put gas in my car so that I can be a productive member of the society? Because no one wants to be on the dole. Not that there are some, not many of them. But I don't want to be on the dole. I want to be a productive member of the society using my gifts and talents to the best, my abilities to help make my home, my neighborhood, my city, my state, and my country more competitive. And I'm going to need the help of both the Republicans and the Democrats. I don't have the luxury to have them sitting around trying to figure it out because, I'm stage 4 arthritis and I'm in pain and I need you to help me fix it. Gas prices are high and I need you to help us fix it. Home prices are challenging and we need you to help us fix it. Food prices are through the roof and we need you to help it fix it. Crime is on the rise all over the place and we need your help in fixing it. Epidemics are coming from the left and the right and we need your help in fixing it. So I encourage you that if you're voting Republican or you're voting Democrat, go to your officials. First, go to your neighbors. And then say to your neighbor, I need your help in fixing it. And then you and your neighbor then go to your elected officials and you say to them, we need your help in fixing it. Because at the end of the day, if we stay divided, no one and nothing will get fixed. We want to be a more perfect union, do we not? These midterm elections were so important. There was so much conversation about it. Okay, here we go. Now let's encourage people to do their jobs. And let's encourage those that are doing their jobs to encourage their colleagues to work harder. That's the gig. That's the job. So, folks, on November 9th, 2022, this has been uh, our Wisdom Wednesday episode. Usually we like to leave you with a little nugget or two. This time I really don't have any nuggets. I guess just this, it just hit me. There is a scripture that says, without a vision, the people perish. I just want to reflect on that for a moment. Without a vision, the people perish. America, what's our vision for the future? Do we have one? What's our vision for the future? I'll leave you with that thought. Think about that phrase that without a vision, the people perish. Thank you for listening to this episode of Folks Unfettered. I am your host, Gene Folks, and I am that brother of light, dropping wisdom in your left ear and knowledge